Right now I am walking toward the place where raw life force seems to pour straight from the cosmos, pass through the water and sink deep into the earth. On the map it looks like just another lake somewhere in the heart of Europe. But in reality, this is one of the most powerful gateways of life energy I've encountered in all my years of exploring places of power. My name is Orlov. For more than 15 years I've been exploring places of power, ancient megalithic sites and the hidden energy map of the Earth. But you don't rush into a place like this. You have to approach it gradually. That's why I'm not starting at the lake itself. I'm beginning here, at a canal that connects the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea. Here the current is still gentle enough to feel, hold and understand. But farther ahead, near the center of the lake, begins the peak of what I call the vortex of the 17th Arcana. It's a place where the energy of life becomes so dense and so intense that it can completely overwhelm your mind. Stay with me until the end of this video, and let's fill every empty tank inside you with raw life force. You know, when people say, I want to visit a place of power, they usually imagine something very elevated. You sit on a rock, close your eyes, angels appear, your chakras open, your third eye blinks, you suddenly understand the meaning of life and drive home practically enlightened. But today's place is not about that at all. This is not a place for enlightenment. This is not where you sit dramatically and stare into infinity. This place is much simpler and much more honest. This place is about raw life force, about the body, about sexual energy, about the kind of energy that doesn't just make a man more spiritual, it makes him feel unmistakably alive, fully switched on, confident, charged, like the whole system just came back online. And for a woman, it doesn't work like, oh, now I understand the universe. It works through the body. Desire wakes up. Arousal returns. The taste for life comes back. The desire to move, to feel, to connect, to enjoy herself, to enjoy a man, to enjoy sex. Because life energy is not something abstract. It's not a glowing ball floating somewhere above your head. It's dense, physical, biological. And that is exactly what the 17th Arcana is connected to. Its projection runs through the area between the kidneys, through the lower back, the abdomen and the navel. And what do we have there? The whole lower system, sexual energy, vital reserves, the ability to desire, to recover, to feel your body, to want to live. And this place doesn't activate some holy old man sitting on a cloud. It activates a living human being. It turns an exhausted man back into a man. It turns an exhausted woman back into a woman. Not a function that works, pays bills, answers messages, and collapses into her phone at night. A living body. A body that wants to live again. And this is very important to understand. Because modern people often think they need more information. Another course, another practice, another insight, another breakthrough. But sometimes you don't need another insight. Sometimes you need your blood to start moving again. You need the body to wake up. You need strength to return to the lower part of the system. You need to wake up in the morning and feel something other than, oh God, another day. You need that healthy, human, almost animal feeling, oh, I'm alive. That is exactly what this place is about. From the outside, of course, it looks completely ordinary. I'm walking along a canal toward the lake. The mosquitoes are probably already preparing the welcome banquet. An average person would drive past and say, it's just a canal, what's so special about it? But the interesting part is that I am walking through the entrance to an incredibly powerful current of life force. And I am deliberately not starting at the lake itself, because out on the lake, especially closer to the center, the current becomes so intense that you can simply stop thinking clearly. At that point, you are no longer working with the place. The place starts working with you. And if your system isn't ready, it can hit so hard that you'll stand there staring at the water, no longer sure who you are, where you are, or why every part of your body suddenly feels switched on. So this is the proper way to enter. Slowly, calmly, along the canal. You walk, watch the water, breathe, feel your body. You don't try to become a great wizard in the first 5 minutes. You don't charge head first into the center of the gateway. You simply enter the space. Because this place is not about beautiful words. It's about living water. The 17th Arcana. The force that rises through the water, passes through the body, and switches life back on inside the person. And here is where it gets even more interesting. This canal isn't random either. On one side, the Baltic Sea, on the other, the Black Sea. So I'm not simply walking beside the water. I'm walking along a line where this gateway of life begins to spin into motion. And next, I'll show you why this completely ordinary looking canal leads to a place that can make your body remember itself very loudly. This canal wasn't dug here by accident. It connects two enormous water systems. To the north, the Baltic Sea. To the south, the Black Sea. So the water here acts like a link between two huge parts of the landscape. Between north and south. Between two seas. Between two vast shores, if you want to put it that way. And this is where things get really interesting. Because when we walk beside the canal like this, we are not only interacting with the water outside us, we are also interacting with the channels inside us. The human body is not just a bag of bones that gets up in the morning, drinks coffee, and pretends everything is under control. Inside us, there are channels everywhere. Blood moves through its vessels, nerve impulses travel through the body. The whole human system is made of pathways, currents, connections, passages, vessels, and flows. And when those channels are open, clean, and alive, a person feels alive. But when there is stagnation, tension, blockage, or internal swamp, you may technically be living, but not at full power. You know that feeling. Nothing really hurts, but everything feels dull. You slept, but you still feel tired. You ate, but there's no energy. Everything seems fine, but inside it feels as if someone turned off the main valve. And when you walk beside a large canal with real water moving through it, especially one connecting such enormous water systems, your own internal channels begin responding. Because a larger current influences a smaller one. A powerful system affects a less powerful system. It's like standing beside a great river. You don't have to do anything. You can simply stand there and watch the water. And something inside begins to change. Your mind quiets down. Your breathing evens out. Your body starts adjusting to the movement of the river. The same thing happens here. But this canal is more than a beautiful stretch of water. It's like an external model of what should be happening inside the human body. The water moves, and life inside you should move too. Blood should move, breath should move, desire should move. And when everything inside has become stagnant, a place like this begins gently setting it in motion again. Not through the mind, not through philosophy, not through a lecture about how the universe works, through the body. You walk, you watch the water, and somewhere inside it feels as if a blocked channel begins opening. The lower back releases. The breath becomes deeper. The abdomen begins waking up. Warmth appears lower in the body. And suddenly you realize, oh, I'm not just a head walking around on two legs. I actually have a body. And that's already a big deal, because modern people often live almost entirely inside their heads. Plans, tasks, anxiety, news, money, deadlines, messages. Who said what, who thinks what, where to go, what to do next. And everything below the neck is almost forgotten. The body is sitting there thinking, am I even part of this operation? Places like this bring you back down, back into the body, back into the living system. That's why I keep saying this isn't a place for enlightenment in the sense of, I became holy and now I survive on sunlight. No, this is a place where life begins flowing through you again, where your internal channels remember that they are not rusty pipes in the basement of an old apartment building. They are a living system. And this canal I'm walking beside is the gentle entrance. We are not at the center yet. We are not at the peak where the current can overwhelm you. This is the level where you can walk calmly and feel how the powerful outer flow begins tuning your inner flow. And farther ahead, it becomes even more interesting. Because if the canal is the entrance, then the lake itself is the bowl. The place where life energy doesn't simply move, it gathers. That is exactly why I'm not rushing straight into the center of the lake. You would think that if the strongest point is out there, then that is exactly where you should go. Drive in, stand in the center of the gateway, open your arms and say, all right, universe, fill me up. But that is usually how you end up becoming very familiar with the nearest bushes. Everything starts coming out, from both ends. Mandatory cleansing. Because the current here is genuinely powerful. And it doesn't work the way many people imagine. The lake is not simply radiating energy, like some giant battery. It's more interesting than that. The current moves from above to below, from subtler, higher frequency layers of reality into denser, physical ones. In the simplest possible language, from the cosmos into the earth. This place works like an entry point where life force moves into the physical world, almost as if a powerful stream is pouring down from above and the lake receives it, holds it, and distributes it through the landscape. That is very close to what we see in the 17th Arcana. The star, a great being, two vessels. It draws from the river of life and death and pours that water into the world. In other words, it takes energy from one layer of reality and transfers it into ours, into the physical, earthly layer. And something very similar appears to be happening here, not on a card, in the actual landscape. There is the lake, the canal, the water, and the space where life energy stops being something out there and begins showing up here, in the body, in the water, in nature, in the blood, in the breath, in the desire to live. And the strongest concentration, of course, is near the center. That is where the current becomes the most dense. And when you enter that field, whether you walk into it, swim into it, or simply move close enough, it can genuinely become difficult to speak. Not because you are trying to look mysterious and magical for the camera, but because the brain is basically saying, sorry, words are currently unavailable, the system is overloaded. The body begins taking in the current, consciousness starts drifting, and suddenly you're no longer very good at explaining any of this in a beautiful, organized way. That is why proper work with a place like this does not begin in the center. It begins at a distance. Here, along the canal, the current is already present, but it is softer. You can still hold it. You can walk, watch the water, breathe, feel your body, and remain more or less conscious of what is happening. That is usually how I approach it. Sometimes I walk a long section of the canal. Sometimes I drive the 7 kilometers toward the lake very slowly. Sometimes I stop at several points along the way, sit down, lie back in the car, close my eyes, and the system simply shuts me down. Not in the ordinary sense of, I was tired so I took a nap. The body begins synchronizing with the current in stages. It is like trying to connect a tiny light bulb directly to a massive power station. You need transformers, you need adapters, you need a gradual reduction and adjustment. And that is what this canal does. It creates a softer entrance. It allows you to enter the current gradually instead of smashing into it head first. It gives the body time to understand. All right, life energy is coming in. The lower back, the kidneys, the abdomen, the lower part of the body. The entire internal system begins switching on carefully. Not all at once, not through overload, step by step. Because this is not a place for a spiritual selfie. This is a place where life force can actually enter the body. And if you move into it too quickly, it can flatten you. But if you approach gradually, along the canal, with pauses, through the water, through the breath, through the body, then you can begin interacting with the current consciously. And that is exactly where I am now. Not in the center, not at maximum intensity. I'm still at the entrance, at the point where I can speak, joke, watch the water, and at the same time feel the landscape slowly switching the body back on. And farther ahead, closer to the lake, all of this will become much more intense. This is probably where I should say a few words about the 17th Arcana. But I'm not going to turn this into a lecture. Because if we seriously dive into the Tree of Sephiroth, the major arcana, energy channels, cities, architecture, and the way all of this works through large spatial systems, this will stop being a video about a lake and turn into a 5-hour class. I actually have a full 9-week online program on the Tree of Sephiroth. That program goes deeply into this subject. But we don't study the major arcana as fortune-telling cards. Not in the sense of you pulled this card, so expect romance, or a mysterious man in a red hat will soon enter your life. No, this is a completely different level. We study the major arcana as actual forces that influence the body, consciousness, physical space, cities, places of power, and large energetic structures. That is where we can examine how these forces appear in architecture, ancient complexes, canals, urban design, and large systems built to organize and direct energy through space. But that's not what today's video is about. Right now we're simply walking along a canal, and I want to tell you how I first connected this place with the 17th Arcana. I've known this lake for about 10 years. I've come here many times. I've walked around it, felt the space, and worked with the energy here. And one evening I was sitting beside the lake near a fire. Nothing dramatic, just the fire, the water, the evening air, a cup of tea in my hands. That kind of moment when you aren't trying to make anything happen, but the place begins opening on its own. And that was when a very powerful image came to me. I saw an enormous being. Not some tiny spiritual fairy hiding in the grass. I mean a massive, almost colossal figure standing over this entire space. And it was holding two vessels. two great balls. It appeared to draw energy from one layer of reality and pour it into this one, into our dense physical world. It didn't feel like this is a beautiful lake. It felt like an enormous process of energy transfer was taking place here, from above to below, from subtle space into dense matter, from somewhere in the higher layers, what we might call the cosmic level, into the water, the earth, the body, and the living natural world. At the time I simply saw it. I didn't have a sophisticated explanation. I didn't have a diagram. I didn't immediately say, of course, this is item 17, page 38. Sometimes a place shows you the image first. The understanding catches up later. And after some time, the subject of the Tree of Sephiroth and the Major Arcana began opening for me in a much deeper way. I started studying how these forces affect physical space. I went deeper into the system. I began organizing what I had experienced and comparing it with the body, with places of power, and with what I had observed in many different locations. And when I finally entered deeply enough into the 17th Arcana, something clicked. Because the image on the card is almost exactly what I had seen here. The star, the water, a being holding two vessels, a stream, energy being poured from one state into another. On the card it is presented symbolically, but here I experienced it as a living structure in the landscape. And that is what matters most to me. Not taking a beautiful theory and forcing it onto a place. The place showed me something first. Only later did the system give me the language to explain it. That is also how my larger program on the Tree of Sephiroth came into existence. For years I traveled, observed, felt, experimented, and collected separate pieces. Then I began organizing them. And eventually, when those pieces formed the working system, I started sharing it with other people. But again, this is not an advertisement for that program. Those who need it will find it later. The Tree of Sephiroth is not something you should rush into. It's a more serious level of work. You need more keys, more preparation, and a clearer understanding of what you are actually doing. For someone who is just beginning and wants to learn how to see places of power as something deeper than nice trees, nice water, beautiful view, I would start with my book, The Secret Guide. That book is the entry point. It explains how to look at places of power, how to understand that a forest may be more than a forest, a lake may be more than a lake, a stone may be more than a stone. It teaches you how to recognize living nodes in the landscape, how to begin sensing gateways, earth crystals, and different types of energy. As always, I'll leave the link below the video, and the QR code will appear on the screen. From there you'll find your own path. For some people the book will be enough. Others will want to go deeper. And some may eventually come to the Tree of Sephiroth. But here, on the shore of this lake, I want to show you one simple thing. The 17th Arcana is not merely an abstract image printed on a card. It can be a real place, a real current, real water, a real landscape where life seems to descend from above and enter the earth. And once you felt that, not in a book, not in a picture, but sitting beside a fire with a cup of tea while listening to the water, it becomes very difficult to look at an ordinary lake in an ordinary way ever again. If you imagine this place as a gigantic energetic tree of life, then the lake is like the trunk. Only this trunk isn't narrow like the trunk of an ordinary tree. It stretches across the entire diameter of the lake, along the shoreline, across the whole ball of water. And the strongest point, the place where the energy becomes the most concentrated, is of course closer to the center. That is where the current is the most powerful. And honestly, the best way to interact with this place is to enter the water. Swim. Immerse yourself. take a boat closer to the center. Or, in winter, if the ice is safe, walk out across it. Then, you are no longer simply observing the place from the outside. You are entering the ball itself. But I would not recommend doing that on your very first visit. Because if you don't have the right keys, if you don't understand what is happening here, if you can't feel the 17th Arcana or hold the image of the star, the vessels and the current of life, you may experience something extremely powerful and have no idea what to do with it. Although, to be honest, this place charges people very strongly even without any special knowledge. I watched the local fishermen. Their eyes were shining brighter than the sun. They sit there catching fish, drinking a little beer, and maybe something stronger, because apparently fishing without a drink is just sitting outside near some water. But you can see it in them. They are charged. Their bodies are alive. There is fire in their eyes. And without even realizing it, they are interacting with this place too. They just don't call it a practice of the 17th Arcana. They call it, I went fishing, sat beside the water, relaxed, and came home feeling human again. And there is something beautiful about that. Some people need the Arcana, the Tree of Sephiroth, keys, meditation, an understanding of the entire structure. Others need a fishing rod, a thermos, and a few quiet hours beside the water. The place works either way. The person with the keys understands what they are interacting with. The person without the keys simply says, "This is a good lake. It has a great feeling. There are fish. The air is incredible." And they aren't wrong. This lake is genuinely alive. And you can see that not only through energy or sensation. Just look at the landscape. This lake is not easy to reach. As far as I understand, the only proper road approaches it from the south. In the past, the lake was almost completely closed off. Wetlands, dense forests, protected land. In some directions, 5 or even 10 kilometers of difficult, wild terrain. And that tells you something. Because powerful places like this are often not surrounded by pavement, parking lots, and fast food stands. They are surrounded by living protection. Wetlands, forest, reeds, animals, moose, bears, birds, insects, fish, plants. None of this is simply background scenery. It is life force made visible. The 17th Arcana is not present here only on some invisible energetic level. You can see it in the sheer amount of life surrounding this lake. The water, the green growth, everything that moves, flies, swims, grows, screams, bites, and desperately wants to stay alive. The mosquitoes are part of the gateway of life too. An unpleasant part, but an honest one. If the mosquitoes are eating you alive, the place is definitely alive. That's the traditional field test. So, this lake is not simply a beautiful point on a map. It is a gigantic ball receiving a current of life. The canal provides the gentle entrance. The shores hold the space. The center gathers the maximum concentration. And everything living around it shows that this energy is not something invented in the mind. It is physically expressed throughout nature. And that is where the stories connected with this lake begin to make sense. Stories that may sound like local legends or exaggerated fishing tales, but once you feel this place, you begin to understand. No, they aren't just stories. Life simply works louder here than it does almost anywhere else. And this is probably the biggest takeaway from our walk today. It may look like we simply walked along a canal, but in reality, I showed you something much bigger than a scenic walk. I showed you how an ordinary looking place can turn out to be anything but ordinary. One person might come here and say, well, it's a lake, there's a canal, it's pretty, a few fishermen are sitting around, the mosquitoes are eating everyone alive, nothing unusual. And from their point of view, they would be absolutely right. But someone else might come here, slow down, sit beside the water, walk along the canal, pay attention to their body, and suddenly realize that something here feels different. This isn't just water. There is an entrance here. There is a current. There is a lake shaped like a giant bowl. And somewhere near its center, the energy becomes incredibly dense. This is the energy of the 17th Arcana. Living water. Raw life force. And it won't give you a beautiful lecture about spirituality. It will simply begin switching your body back on. And honestly, that's what I love about real places of power. Most of them don't look dramatic at all. There's no sign saying, warning, gateway of life ahead. There's no ticket booth. There's no professionally trained shaman handing out shoe covers and reading the safety instructions. There's no golden light shooting out of the bushes. There's just a canal, a lake, a forest, and a few fishermen who may actually understand this place better than anyone else. They sit quietly, they watch the bobber, they drink tea, or possibly something stronger, because fishing without a few traditions starts looking suspiciously like a business meeting. So there's a man sitting beside the lake. He has no idea what the 17th Arcana is. He doesn't know where this current sits on the tree of Sephiroth. He doesn't know anything about an entity pouring the energy of life from two vessels. He just came here to go fishing. He sat down. He became quiet. He switched off the noise of the city. He watched the water. And when he went home, he wasn't nearly as drained as when he arrived. In his own way, he did everything correctly. Because sometimes you don't need to make things complicated. There's water, there's silence, the body relaxes, life begins moving again. That's enough. The sophisticated language can come later. Arcana, energy currents, channels, gateways, earth crystals, places of power, the hidden energy map of the planet. But the first step is always simple. You come to a place and either it begins working with you or it doesn't. Something inside you responds, or you simply enjoy the walk and move on. And both are completely normal. Not every lake is a source of life. That's important. Belarus has no shortage of lakes. There are lakes everywhere, wetlands everywhere, forests, water, beautiful landscapes. But that doesn't mean every lake benefits the human body in the same way. Different lakes carry different energies. One may cleanse you, another may make you sleepy, a third may pull something heavy out of you, and a fourth may leave you thinking, why did I come here and who unplugged my battery? Different lakes have different functions, different states, different kinds of power. But this particular combination, a massive current of life energy, the 17th Arcana, living water, physical restoration and vitality, this is the strongest place of its kind that I personally know in Belarus, at least among all the places I've visited. And if we look more broadly across the heart of Europe, there are very few places I can compare to it. There are similar locations, there are powerful water nodes, there are incredible lakes, springs, rivers and wetlands where you can work with energy. But this level of power, this enormous bowl, this concentration of life force, that's a different story. So if you ever come here, Don't try to prove anything. Don't show up wearing the expression of a legendary conqueror of interdimensional gateways and immediately march toward the center saying, "All right, lake, give me everything you've got." The lake might actually do it. The question is whether you need that much on your first visit. Start gently. Walk along the canal. Sit near the water. Stop in several places. Notice how your body responds. Not your mind. Your mind can invent almost anything. Listen to the body. Do you feel warmer? Does something begin waking up in your lower abdomen? Do you suddenly feel more alive? Do you want to move, create, love, work, or do something with your life? That's already contact. You don't need to pretend you're a 10th level wizard. Sometimes the best spiritual practice is simply sitting beside the water and not getting in the way. If you feel that the place is welcoming you, you can step into the water. You can swim, you can take a boat further out, provided you understand the conditions and know what you're doing. In winter, you might walk across the ice, assuming the ice is safe and your common sense is still functioning. A spiritual calling is not a substitute for checking the ice. Approach the place with respect, without arrogance. Water is not an amusement ride, and the powerful place is not a free charging station with a button that says, "Recharge me now." It's a living space, and it can give you a great deal. You can draw life force from it. You can work with healing through this energy. Or you can simply come here, sit beside the water and listen. But don't assume every lake is automatically a gateway of life. It isn't. Just as not every guy with a guitar is Johnny Cash, not every puddle after a rainstorm is an entrance into the 17th Arcana. Look deeper, feel, compare, and don't believe something just because someone says it. That includes me. Test it through your own body, because in places like this, the body often understands, long before the mind does. The mind is still asking, what kind of energy is this? How do I explain it? What system does it belong to? Meanwhile, the body is already saying, "Oh, fuel, great, I'll take it." And if you'd like to learn how to see places like this not simply as a forest, some water and a nice view, but as part of the living map of the earth, start with my book, The Secret Guide. It's the best entry point into this subject. No information overload, no complicated diagrams. No need to jump immediately into the Tree of Sephiroth, the Major Arcana, hidden channels, or a 9-week training program. First, you need the foundation. How to look at places of power. How to understand where a place recharges you, where it cleanses you, where it activates the body, where it opens knowledge, and where you probably shouldn't try to be a hero. I'll leave the link to the book below the video. There will also be a QR code on the screen. Download it, read it, take it with you when you travel, and maybe one day you'll find yourself beside an ordinary lake, an old canal, a spring, or a quiet river, and suddenly realize, this place isn't ordinary at all. Tell me in the comments whether you've ever found a place like that. Maybe you simply went for a walk, sat beside the water, went fishing, spent the night near a lake, and afterward your state changed. Maybe you felt recharged. Maybe the place completely knocked you out. Maybe your energy returned. Or maybe you immediately understood, this place isn't for me. Something here feels heavy. I genuinely enjoy reading those stories, because every person has their own map of power. Most people simply walk across that map with their eyes closed. If this video resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and send this video to someone who thinks places of power only exist in Tibet, Egypt, or on the other side of the planet. Sometimes the entrance to a gateway of life is right here, in the heart of Europe, beside an ordinary canal, right next to the road, where the water moves quietly, the fishermen sit patiently, the mosquitoes celebrate, and somewhere near the center of the lake, a current of life force rises so powerfully that you should approach it with respect, not ego. My name is Orlov. This has been another walk and talk through the living energy map of the Earth. Take care of yourself, protect your energy, and remember, sometimes the most powerful place looks so ordinary that you can drive past it 100 times. And only on the 101st time do you finally realize